Welcome to the Middleware Tech YouTube channel. You'll learn about default and static method in Java 8. All code examples used in the videos will be available on GitHub. Let's get started.
Into more in this. Fine. So when you create a functional interface, what we told last day about functional interface. So assume, let me talk about first default method. Assume I'm creating a functional interface. So interface shape. I'm saying that this is a functional interface. So to say is a functional interface, what we talked about, you can use one annotation @ functional interface, functional interface annotation you can use, but its use is optional. Now inside your functional interface, you can, what is the definition of functional interface is that you should have only one abstract method. One abstract method like void area. We have only one abstract method inside the functional interface. You should not have more than one abstract method inside a functional interface. So that is a property of functional interface that we talked about. And functional interface is used to call lambda expression. So like this way we talked last day. Fine. Now we have added another one point, like in Java 8, we can add a default method. We can have a default method inside functional interface also. In Java 8, we can have a default method inside a functional interface. So if it is, so we can write a default method like this. Default void cal. So this is a default method that I have declared inside a particular interface that is called shape. One default method we have, right? Now this another question is that why they have implemented this default method inside an interface in Java 8, right? How I can call a default method, right? So lots of questions will come, right? So first point I want to say that why this default method concept came. The thing is that if you think about the properties of interface, what is the properties of interface? Any class, if it implements an interface, then must have to override all the abstract method that is available inside an interface. Fine. So you need or not need, if any class implements an interface as per the properties of interface, all the methods you have to override in your class. Then only you can implement the functionality for a particular existing interface, right? So that means when we create an interface, then it is final. That is, we are not allowed to change. Okay, right? So already, if there is an interface in your project, Already one interface is there. Fine. Now that interface already have multiple derived classes. Already the project is ready. Now what you're going to do, can you change that existing interface in the project? You can't. Why? Because if you are going to change that existing interface in the project, how many classes that derive that interface, everywhere you have to update. So if you already created some interface in your object-oriented project design, you are not allowed to change the existing interface in your application. You are not allowed. If that project already done, and you have assume 10 to 20 method implements that interface, and now you are going to change that interface, then everywhere all the derived class you have to update. So that's why when we create an interface, so first point, when we create an interface in project, then we are not allowed to change that interface. Right? So that is the problem. If you are going to add some new functionality, you are not allowed to change, because if you change, then all the derived class you have to change. Right? Now the question is that, now if I want to add tomorrow, if I want to add some functionality in the existing application, then how I'm going to add? Okay, if I'm going to add any functionality, that means without affecting the implementation classes, is it possible to add some function? Again, I'm saying the question is without affecting the implementation classes, without affecting the implementation classes, is it possible is it possible to add some function? Without affecting the existing implementation classes, is it possible? Because till Java 1.7, if I'm going to add something in the interface, that method you must have to override in all the derived classes. Now the question is that without affecting the implementation classes, is it possible to add some function inside the interface? It is not possible till Java 7, but it is possible in Java 8 using default method. Using default method, we can add some functionality inside my interface, even existing implementation, and none of the derived class have to override this default method. If you are adding any functionality inside this default method inside your functional interface, then that method no one have to override. None of the derived class have to override this method. Okay. So it is possible, right? So here you can write solution is default method. Fine. Default method, that is this one. Fine. So if I have this default method, what I can write, that the implementation classes don't have to worry about this default method. So you can write like implementation classes don't have to override all the method. Implementation classes don't have to override all the method, or implementation classes don't have to override default method. That is the advantage. If you have a default method inside your functional interface, you can add your own logic. They don't have to think about override. If you want, you can override. If any implementation class want, no, I should override it from functional interface to my own class, you can override, but it is not mandatory. It's optional, right? Okay, now second, that means you assume you have a particular derived class, assume that is class circle implements shape. Fine. So if class circle implements shape, it is like this. Fine. So here, since it's an interface, you must have to override this one. Must Control C, Control V. You have to override this. Is your public static final? So you have to make it public. You can override, but it is not mandatory that you have to override default method in Java 8. If you want, you can override. If you don't, are not required. Right? So this is the point. Next, if you see this method, here it is given default. Now default, there is an access specifier, right? But what is default access specifiers? That is what we talked about. Default access specifier means nothing. Default access specifier means nothing. There is no access specifier that you are going to write default access specifier, nothing. This is the default access specifier means nothing. So that is an access specifier. But in this here, default, the method, what is the meaning of this default? It is not connected with the access specifier. What is the meaning of this default? I'm writing a default void cal. What does it mean by default? Default method means already we have the implementation. That's why it is saying default implementation. Okay. Okay. So that not required to implement, not mandatory to implement. Okay. Now if you want to override it, now see, let me write it, then you can see much more. Control C. We're going to open here, create one class here, right click, new class, and use that class name, whatever we use, circle. Okay, and see how it look like. This is your Control V. Save interface, find no issues. This is a default method, correct? That you have overridden area method. Fine. Save it, right click, source format. Now I want to override this default method. I want to override. Fine. Control C, Control V, and here I'm going to write system dot out dot println. So what I'm going to write, override overridden default method, right? Overridden default method. Right now, now see here. If you want, you can override the default method. You can override, but you cannot see this given an error, right? Right. So show that if you want to public, is there any error gone? No. So what is the property? The property is that you can override a particular default method from the interface to your class, but you cannot use default name inside a class. No. Default method you can have only inside functional interface. You cannot create a method with this default inside a class. If you write default, it will give an error. What it is saying, just see here. Default method not allowed, only in the interface. That means we cannot write default method inside a class. We can only override a default method inside a class from function interface, right? So the next point is we cannot have default method inside a class. We cannot have default method inside a class. You got another one point, right? Right. Okay. Now the default the name, as the main name is saying, it is providing that implementation only, right? So now the question is that how I can call a particular default method, right? So just see here how I can call a default method. This is a default method. Assume you have written some text here like system dot out dot println, and you can write something here inside like inside a shape interface, inside and default method, right? Inside default method, overridden default method. Two things is there, right? Now how I can call it, right? How I can call it. So if you want to call it, then you have to create a main method. So create a main method here, public static void main string. Fine. Okay. Okay. Now how I can call this default method, right? Now one point is that already you know, right, how to call superclass reference is pointing to derived class object. Already you know DMD, right? So you can write shape sh equal to new circle. DMD, using DMD we can write like this, right? Already talked about earlier. Using DMD we can write like this. Superclass reference is pointing to derived class object. Fine. Okay. Now now here, so using this reference I can call sh dot cal. Fine. Now save it. Right. So right click, run as Java application. Now if I'm calling like this, so it is calling that overridden default method, right? The default method you have declared here with your own code, and if I want to implement, you can override your code here. Now it is calling this overridden default method. So whatever code you have written, that you have overridden inside the derived class, right? Now it is calling overridden default method, right? So like this way we can call a particular default method creating an using superclass reference, right? Okay. Now, okay. Let me check. Save it. Fine. Yes, please. You want to add something else? Fine. So this is all about default method. Next, we'll move with the next one called static method. Next, we have another one definition in a static method, right? Static method. Let's talk about a static method. So if I want to say about a static method, then we'll say like in Java 8, inside your functional interface, we can have a static method also. So if you take the same example, take this one, Control C, take this one. In Java 8, okay, inside your functional interface, this is a functional interface, assume this is a functional interface. Assume this is a functional interface. Now I'm going to remove this one. And inside this, you can have a static method. A static method, how it look like? Provide a static method like public, static, void, and fine. Opening brace and closing brace. So from Java 8, they've introduced a static method inside your interface. Now the question is why they thought like that we have to introduce static method inside an interface from Java 8. Why that concept came? What is the requirement? What is the need? That's why they came with this concept that we have to include static method inside an interface, right? So the point is like static. What is the meaning of a static? If you think about the meaning of a static that we talked about day one, right? Day one or day two. So what is the meaning of a static? Static means without creating an object, I can access variable, static variable, or static method. So if something is a static, I can access that without creating an object, right? So if something is static and I can access it without creating an object, so I'm not creating an object for a static data member and method to access a static data member and method, then why I'll put a static data member method inside a class? What's the point? Again, I'm saying static static means without creating an object, I can access instance variable and method. That is the static variable and static method I can access without creating an object. So to access static variable and static method, I don't have to create an object, right? So if then why I'll put that static variable and method inside a class? Fine. So from that need, they came with a solution. Since static means there is no creation of object, so if I put something inside a class, then only I have to create an object from the class. So why I'll put those static data member and method inside a class? So let them put inside an interface itself. Since there is no connections of creating an object with static data member, right? So while put inside a class, let them put inside an interface, right? So that is, we can say, like let me write. I think better to write in a language, better to be quite meaningful. Like if we don't have the concept of object, then we should go for a static approach, right? If we don't have the concept of object, right, then we should go for static approach. Right? So that is, if a method is not related to object, then we should go for if a method is not related to object, then why I should go for object class, right? So we should go for interface. Or you can say another one point, like if a method is not related to an object, if a static method is not related to object, then why we should go for a class? Why we should go for a class, right? So what we will do is that we should go for interface. That means we will put a static method inside interface. We include static method inside interface. Fine. So that's why in Java 8 you'll find this static method inside your interface, right? First point. Second point, if you remember, we talked about that we cannot override a static method. Okay, so if you have a static method, so assume you have written some code inside this static method, like system dot out dot println, right? And write something inside static method interface inside interface static. Fine, just written some code. Fine. So if it is, then static method cannot be overridden. So how I can call this static method? How I can call this static method? You cannot override. So how I can call this static method? Right. So let me check. Control C. I can make circle.java, but in different package. Right click, new class, use some other package, and circle. Okay, so it is like this. Now this is my interface, function interface. We have a normal method, abstract method, and this is a static method, right? And this is my circle class that implements that functional interface, right? Right click source format. Now here inside this I'm writing a main method, public static void main string here. Yes, I can write a main method, right? Now how I can call this static method? Since it is not connected with an object, right? Can I call like this, like shape sh equal to new circle, right? And then I'm calling sh dot display. Display is not visible, not coming, right? So then how it is not coming, right? Then how I can call this static method? This static method we can call using that interface name itself. That means interface name dot display. Dot display. Using interface name, I can call this static method. Fine. Now right click, run as Java application. Yes, it's working fine. So we can call a static method only with the name of the interface, right? We can call the static method only with the name of the interface. So we got another 1 point. We can call static method using interface name. Fine. Okay. Now here this static method. Now think about main method. Our main method is static method, right? Now you may find some question that can I have a main method inside this interface in Java 8? Again, I'm saying that main method is a static method, right? So can we have this main method inside static method? Let me check whether we can write a main method in the static method or not. So what we'll do is that let me write one main method here, right? Let me write one main method here. Okay. This main method, I do not write it here, Control X, and to put this main method here. Okay. Just see here, please. Main method is not in the circle class. It is in this. It is in this shape class itself. Shape interface. Save it and name this as shape only. This file name. Circle file name. Right click, refactor, rename. Right click, refactor, rename. Change this name as shape only. File name. Not this one. I'm talking about this circle. Leave it. It is inside some other package, not here. This is right click, refactor, rename. Shape. Rename shape. Now see here. This is an interface, right? Just see here. This is an interface. Functional interface. And in the functional interface, I've written on a static method. Now I'm just saying that our main method, it's also a static method. Question is that can I have a main method inside an interface in Java 8? See here, I have just written a main method inside interface and there is no error. Let me write here system.out.println. See here, please. Main method is defined inside an functional interface and there is no error, right? And here I'm just writing inside main inside functional interface. Inside functional interface. So you can write main inside functional interface. Main inside functional interface. Fine. So if you write like this and save it, and there is no error, just see here, no error. That means what? We can write a main method inside a functional interface. Fine. So you got another 1 point. There's no error, right? So we can, so main method can be written inside functional interface. Yes, we have written that one. Main method written inside function interface, right? Main method written inside function interface. Yes. Now the question is that how to run this main method. It's an interface, right? Can I run this interface? How I can run this file, right? So right click, run as Java application. Proceed. Now see here in Java 8, we can run an interface also. Just see here, interface content main method. If you run, it will print. So in Java 8, we can run an interface also. Fine, in Java 8, and you can get the output. Just see here, main method executed and got the output, main inside function interface. So from Java 8, we can run a functional interface also, right? We got another 1 point. From Java 8, we can execute a functional interface, right? Yes, we can execute a functional interface and it's working fine. It is giving the output, no error. So you can add this code as a control C as a guide here for a static method. You can write like this. Right? That's it. These are the things all about static method in Java 8. Static method in Java 8, if I want to say, I can say these details. Fine. Okay. Now, if you remember last day, we talked about functional interface, right? So functional interface, using functional, why I need this functional interface. Last day talked about like we need this functional interface to call lambda expression. We need this functional interface to call lambda expression. Fine. So, and we have executed in small examples how we can call